It's 9 o'clock. It is Thursday, July the 2nd, 2015. This is the July meeting of the Riverfront Design Committee. May we have roll call, please?
Paul Dedman.
Present.
Anthony Blatt. Brian Doherty. Scott Howard. John Joyce. Don Kasperite. Jillian Robles. Richie Split.
Here.
David Yost. Here. You have a quorum.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes of our last meeting, which was back in May, on May the 7th of this year. The minutes were in your packet. Does anyone have any questions or comments? Otherwise, we'll obtain a motion for approval. Moved by Mr. Yost.
Second.
Second by Mr. Howard. All those in favor? Aye. Motion passed. Next item, cases withdrawn. There are none. Next, continuance requests. There are none. Consent docket, no items. Cases for individual consideration, there are no items. Item 7, other business. Item 7A, SPUD 00827 at 1513 Exchange Avenue.
Good morning.
Good morning.
This is an item for recommendation from this committee to the Planning Commission for an SPUD out at what I believe, if I get this correctly, it is the Public Works Oklahoma River Maintenance Facility. There was a previous SPUD approved at this location, and they're wanting to change the height of a building and add additional land, so they had to come in with a second SPUD. There currently is the building on the right that's been built in response to the first SPUD, and there will be another building built which will house the equipment that Public Works uses out of this location. The conditions in the SPUD were revised as per directed by staff, and staff is very comfortable with the conditions that are currently included in there, and staff is recommending a favorable recommendation from this committee to the Planning Commission.
Okay, thank you. Did anyone have any comments? Mr. Howard, did you?
No comments, but probably will need to abstain since I'm on the design team.
Okay, so noted. Mr. Howard will abstain from voting and participating. Anyone else have any comments?
Move approval.
Moved by Mr. Doherty. Seconded by Mr. Yost. All those in favor? Aye. 4 approvals with 1 abstention. Thank you.
Thank you.
Item 7B, SPUD 00832 at 3033 Southwest 14th Street.
Good morning. We have a second SPUD this morning before you, which is SPUD 832. And this is also seeking your recommendation to the Planning Commission for their meeting. Their first one is next week. This is a 7,000 square foot lot that the SPUD conditions do not request that it remain within the Scenic River Overlay District, which was one issue staff had. It is the property that's behind that fence that you're seeing there. They are requesting storage of bricks and blocks, maximum height 12 feet, and they were wanting to put in a 6-foot fence to screen the 12-foot high storage. That area, we have adjacent is a house across the street are still some single-family homes, and then the applicant has the property behind it, which was the subject of an SPUD several years ago, which was it's not part of Scenic River, where the brick and the block are stored, and this would be an extension of that use. I believe, I haven't met him, but I believe that's Mr. Bigby, and his attorney are present here. And staff is not recommending in favor of this SPUD request.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, for the record, my name is Dennis Box. This is Wayne Knoll.
Good morning.
And Wayne Knoll is a former owner of Fox Brick and Stone. He is in the masonry business. In 1996, Wayne and I went and rezoned the parcel just north of this. The aerial that I've handed out shows that this area is replete with different storage, both vehicles and other uses. There are very few houses. I'm going to let Wayne tell you the story about it, but Wayne has just sold to the City of Oklahoma City property that will be part of the scenic overlay out at Rockwell and I-40, and that's an area where he stored some of his stone. And our goal is just to take this 50-foot lot that Wayne owns and take the stone from I-40 and Rockwell and move it over here. If you look at the area, you get a pretty good view of the sparse housing that's in this area. We're not trying to take ourselves out of the district. What we're trying to do is say we think this is an interim use. The interim use to the north, there's very few houses. Those that are there, most are not occupied. Wayne will tell you the state of affairs in that area, but we think it's an area that in the interim is probably a good use, just like that use in 1996 was approved for Wayne's storage of rock and stone. So with that, I'm going to let Wayne talk to you.
Morning. My name's Wayne Null. I'm a lifetime resident here in Oklahoma City. I've had several interactions with the city where I've worked with them on various projects. As Dennis said, this particular piece is zoned, or we're asking for rezoning on it, to move some material that I've had stored on the I-40 and Rockwell site over by Kenworth Truck. The city purchased from me approximately 14 acres over there for a river trails extension, and along that I had approximately 300 pallets of brick and rock stored there. Back in 1996, about 20 years ago, we had zoned this piece that Dennis mentioned to you to where I could utilize that for what I do, and typically that's masonry repair work. So the bricks that you see there that I use is when someone, such as you guys, calls me and says, hey, I've got a mailbox got ran over, I ran into the side of my garage, or my wife did, or that doesn't happen very often, it's usually the guy, and I'll qualify that, thank you. And so I need that material. I can't just turn around and leave it. As you come down the trail, and I have pictures with me, but we don't have them up on the projector, on I-40 and Rockwell, because of it being next to the river and because it's in that trail system, it's the first thing that people see when they come off the bridge. So for the past year or so, ever since I knew that the city was taking the property or us selling it to them, I've been trying to get this piece that I already had prepared to compress and take this material that's coming in. My first thought was just to go ahead and use the property and then for storage. But in doing some checking, found out it wasn't zoned, so I'm trying to do the right thing. We tore down the house that was there that was dilapidated. I put up a 6-foot fence around there, sight screen, so it's not going to be something that people are going to see. And as far as the 12-foot requirement, as far as the height that I can stack stuff, you don't stack brick 12 foot high. The only situation where I have that much height needed anyway is where I have some storage containers to keep people from stealing down there. The problem with this area is it's not very well protected by the city police. And consequently, over the years, a lot of the people have vacated the area. All of the houses next to this, even the house that's, that you can see in the picture that's a yellow one, that one there, it's vacant. The lots to the east going towards May Avenue, next 6 lots, there's nothing on them. There's no houses. The house next to that, vacant. And if you look at the overlay, and you can see the density in there, it's somewhere probably about 10–15%. So I don't think that the neighborhood's ever going to come back. I don't see how it can. There is somewhat of a crime element down there, but at least being in the position of having some activity down there, at least in quiet activity like I have, I think that it's, what's the word, helping it. Now, over the 20 years, I've never had any complaints from the city other than the house I tore down. They said needed to be painted, so I figured that'd be a good time to tear it down anyway. And it's to me obvious that it's going to go commercial someday. I don't know when that day is going to be, whether it's 20 years from now, and I know that the city has long-range plans. I understand that. But since I already have the business there in the adjoining property, since materials are already stored there, and since this site is adjoining, this will allow me to take the materials off of the river trail and move them into this congested area, or not congested area, but confined area. So I don't think that there would be any logical reason not to allow me to do that. It's just the logical way that I see that things are going to go. And, if someone can point out to me that it's not, then I certainly am receptive. But I've spent quite a bit of money, not to look at Dennis, but, to get this done, to try to do it the right way. And all I'm asking for is the committee to allow me to go ahead and move forward with this, because I'm out of time. As I mentioned, part of the problem was the fact that they ran the trail, and then within 2 days after the trail was run in, the city came to me again and said, we need to run a 4-foot water line back there. And so between those two projects that the city did, I've already had to displace a lot of this material. And this is just the remaining portion of it. Since that's happened, Kenworth Truck has purchased the rest of the property that this material is on, so I have no choice. I've got to move it. I can't just leave it there. I have some other property that's available over on I-40 and Council that I can put it on, but I don't think that that's the logical place to put it. It's right across the street from outlet malls. And to me, it would be certainly more convenient to where I can have all the material that I need, buy all the equipment I have. I have a couple of forklifts, a Bobcat, and that's what I do. So if you have any questions at all, I'll be happy to try to answer them for you. But basically, it's to take some displaced material, move it into an area that I've already been using for 20 years, and continue doing what I'm doing. And I don't think it's any eyesight problem. I don't think that there's anything that I'm going to do, actually, that anyone will even see. Because, like I said, that fence is 6 foot high, and when you stack brick, at the maximum, you put 2 pallets on top of each other. The last thing you want to do is be doing what I've done for the past 6 months on every weekend I've had, is go out and stack brick. Most people don't look at that as a pleasurable weekend, but that's what I've been doing, trying to get this prepared to move this material.
Okay, thank you very much, sir. Committee?
I have a question. The 12-foot height, where did that come from? I mean, if you're only stacking 6 foot.
It's a very good question. And what we tried to do is mirror the application that was approved in '96, and it had a 12-foot height on it. We don't need the 12-foot height, so, if you went down to, 6 feet?
Well, more logically would say 8. I think an 8-foot height would be more than ample for what I need. I think probably an 8-foot height would be more than adequate for what I need. I can't think of a reason why I would need anything higher than that. And on the other lots, the only thing that's that high is the storage containers. I have 3 storage containers that I have to have stuff locked up in. Getting back to the problem I mentioned to you, there's so much theft down there. I mean, I can elaborate about that, but I'm sure you guys are aware of the problem down there. So, yeah, 8 foot would be certainly agreeable to me. We could whack off a third of that.
So also, you control and own the property north of you?
That's correct.
As a storage yard? So basically, this would expand?
This is literally allowing me to expand the operation of that. And I don't know if you can see the overlay. It's pretty self-explanatory. This is just a connection of that.
The pictures I've seen, I didn't see a height-proof fence on that north property.
There never has been one. When I bought the property back in the 90s, the gentleman had operated a tilt-up slab operation there and actually had, I don't know how long he'd had it, but almost like 15, 20 years, and that was the way it was, and I haven't changed it. We've had, that's the remaining fence that's still there, his fence that was there when I bought that.
I'm curious, would you consider fencing all of it if we move to approve? I mean, fence the north?
Well, it wouldn't be
toward
my
all-
preference, number one, for the expense of it. Number two, it's not an area that site proofing is really going to do you much good anyway. The interstate is to the south of there, or not to the south, to the west, and you can look down upon it. And it's not, of course, I when I had the stone yard there on I-40 and Agnew, and people would smell the stockyards and they'd come shopping on Saturday, I'd say, to cattlemen, that smells like money to them. Doesn't bother them. So to me, I look at brick probably a little different than most people. But it's not unsightly, it's not ugly, and really to put a site-proof fence around it is not going to gain anything. I did this. I put this wood fence around this property we're talking about just to try to be in compliance with you guys, just to try to do it, as correctly. But this is a change. This is something new, and the other was somewhat grandfathered in.
Okay.
Any other comments? Does anyone care to make a motion? Do you have a...
Well, I'm just going to ask,
Surely.
if this may have been, someone else may have asked this because I'm having a little trouble with an echo in here this morning, but how long do you anticipate that you would want to have that on that property if you were to be...
Well, that's a good question.
About
I'm going to be 65 in August, and so, Dennis and I were talking about this a little earlier, how long are you going to keep doing this? And I've been doing it since I was 19.
But you wouldn't have any plans to actually be using or selling them that you know of?
Well, someday, someday, like all of us, we are going to sell our property one way or the other. Somebody's going to get it, and there's going to be another buyer. And someday I'll have to sell this just for, if nothing else, age reasons. I like doing what I do, and I don't know how much longer I'll do it, but I don't want to make a promise that, December the 31st in 5 years that I'm not going to be doing this, because I might be. It'd be, like asking one of you guys, when are you guys going to quit doing what you guys do? And so I don't think anybody wants to put a timeline on it. Also, it's an asset. I've obviously spent a lot of money.
But it would be a revolving storage area then where you'd be taking material away from there and adding new material? And
Well,
you'd be using
there's
it
not
as
been so much adding new material. I'm at a point where I'm so saturated with material that I don't need any new material, and probably won't for the rest of my foreseeable career, if you want to call it that. And so once I get this material in there, and if you want, I'll show you a picture of what I have to move. But someday, the next guy is going to want to be able to do something with this. And so I don't want to put a cloud on it, if you want to call it that, just says, well, you can buy this property, but you're not going to be able to use it for this, that, or the other. And again, all I'm wanting to do is to have a continuation of what I have existing and be able to expand it slightly. And so, if I understand your question correctly, for me to say, well, we're going to be done in 5 years, or we're going to be done in 10 years, that would be a hard one to answer.
No, I was just thinking, are you going to be storing some existing inventory as a matter of present convenience, or was it going to be an ongoing operation where material would be coming and going from the site?
Typically, it'll be leaving. It's going to be, like I said, the area that I have is somewhat confined. So I don't have the ability to keep expanding, nor do I really want to. Getting back to that 65 deal, I'm just not, I just don't want to keep getting bigger and bigger and bigger. I've done that and been there and had a very successful story here in Oklahoma City. I mean, like I said, my somewhat infamous claim is Fox Brick and Stone. And so to answer your question, Mr. Yost, I don't anticipate getting any bigger. What I'm trying to do is merely move what I have and try to do it correctly where, the city inspector who drives around there regularly, I think her name's Rosemary, that everyone doesn't seem to like so much, but I don't want her to say, Wayne, you can't store this stuff in here because you're not zoned. So that's where all this effort has been, to build the fence, get it ready, and to get it to where I can just literally kind of evolve into that area and eventually come back out of it someday. I'm not going to do this forever.
Any other questions?
I just
The spud would stay on the property if it was approved, just like the other spud that's behind it stays with that property.
Eventually, that's going to happen, no doubt. You're right about that.
I think that's a very good question. I think the answer is, if you look at the aerial, ours is not the only storage. So what's going to happen is, this is an intermuse. At some point, somebody will come in, a big player, and take a huge portion of this, but it's going to come at a time when they clean up the entire properties, is our view. And at that point, I'm guessing they'll take Wayne's property out and he'll no longer be there. I think it's important. Wayne is not in the retail business of selling rock and stone out here. This is just his stone that he uses for his business. So, but anyway, you all know the facts, and thank you for your consideration.
Thank you. Any other questions, comments?
I just
Lisa?
want to clarify something that Dennis said. This spud, if this spud goes forward and is approved, it would be out of RDC review. Because you said at the beginning your intent was not to take it out, but RDC review doesn't exist in this spud as currently written.
Well, the only thing we're wanting to do in the spud is provide a use.
Is to change the uses.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I'm saying as it is presented, it doesn't leave in RDC review.
If part of the recommendation is to put that back in, we'll...
I just want to confirm that that's intention.
No, that's not our intention. Our intention is just to allow this use on this property,
Okay.
period. And that's what the spud provides.
Okay, well then the spud as presented does not have RDC review in it.
So then, does this have to be amended?
The action for the committee is to provide a recommendation to Planning Commission, and along with that recommendation, we can add any suggestions.
And if I might, because I hadn't seen the aerial he handed out, and so I looked at it just to clarify if you look at the subject property and that whole row of blocks of the neighborhood, that is all still zoned residential. If you continue off to the right, and I lost my direction at this point, where there is some more outdoor storage that clearly shows up, that has already been zoned industrial. So further off to the right, that area has already been zoned industrial, which would allow all that outdoor storage. So I just wanted to, because I didn't
But that's
have...
existing, what you're talking, existing industrial, correct? It's already been zoned for...
That property has, so that's why you would see all that outdoor storage in that area, because it's already been zoned industrial some time ago.
Thank you. Any other comments? Anyone care to make a motion?
Let's see if I can word this right. Make a motion to approve with conditions of 8-foot limitation, the adding back in the Riverfront Design Committee review upon when the property transfers, and is there any way to add back that when that property sells, that it reverts back into this district? That
Our intent's not to take out the district, it's just to add this use that
Right.
we think is a interim use. So that's something I can coordinate with staff and go through the motion. So it'll remain in this district.
Right. I think from staff's perspective, if we get the screening identified and then it remains in the district, that the use is fine.
okay.
So the motion is what? That-
Motion to approve the use
To provide a recommendation of approval.
But with the understanding that this property stays within the Riverfront Design
Committee
area, but subject to the ordinance.
And you also changed the 12-foot down to 8-foot.
Correct.
Okay.
Okay, is there a second to that motion? Okay. All those in favor? Those against? 1. I vote no. So it's 4 to 1 in favor of approval. Thank you very much for your time, gentlemen. Next item is item 8, communications. We have item A, administrative approval report. We have 2 items there, SRCA-14-00002 at 800 Southeast 6th Street, and item 2 is SRCA-15-00002 at 744 Southeast 6th Street. Anyone have any questions or comments on those items? If not, please note on item B, Planning Commission, the proposed ordinance amendment to the Zoning and Planning Code, Chapter 59, pertaining to the demolition of structures in the design districts has been continued on until May. Is that?
It was continued at the May 28th meeting.
Oh, okay.
We're having a workshop July 8th that hopefully, this is the demolition ordinance.
Right.
We're having a workshop on July 8th that should finally get it moving again in the right direction. When I say we, I mean Planning Commission.
Okay. Thank you. Item C, comments from the Planning Department staff. Anyone? Comments from committee? Next meeting date is Thursday, August the 6th. Do we have anything on the agenda?
At this moment, we have no new cases.
We're not going to get to know each other very well.
I know.
Anything else from anyone? If not, we'll entertain a motion for adjournment. Moved by Mr. Split. Thank you very much. Seconded by Mr. Howard. All those in favor? Aye. Hope you all have a good 4th and safe weekend. Thank you.